I keep doing this. I need to remember to put this thing up here after I'm done with class. Really, I'm just telling you the things I'm thinking while I'm awkwardly going down the first row. If you are visiting with us today, you came on an extremely good day. There is food today. And there's good food. And someone at my house made a cinnamon roll cake. So, Clara did it, it's a mess. But there's really good food in there. And after we fellowship together, or I guess we're in church one with another, is that how we say it here? After we fellowship together, we will have a free concert from the Good News Singers. And the whole Bowman family will actually open up for them, singing a cappella covers of UB40 songs. So, whatever gets you back, I guess. You can believe whatever you want to as long as you come back. Now, I know some of you don't stay for potluck, and we don't judge you for that. We think you're crazy, but we don't judge you for that. But if you want to go eat at the Sizzler and come back, we won't judge you for coming back and having them come. We want you to come enjoy this. This is just be fantastic. There are some things in life that do not disappoint, and you will not be disappointed, I promise. I've heard this particular. The Good News Singers is always around. The Good News Singers was a group when I was at Harding, and they are a group now. There's different manifestations of the group from one year to the next, and this, you will not be disappointed with this group. They are fantastic. So please, please come back. Have I groveled enough? Good. All right, so another thing of business. I know some of you have learned that this place fills up pretty quickly at about 10:29. So you get here about 10:25 to get a good parking spot and to get a good seat. A couple things. This fourth row is always empty. Always. I don't know. Did someone die there? Is it haunted? It's always empty. So we have a whole row for you if you would like to claim it. We'll even name it for you. But also, if you get here to get a good parking place, if you have a truck, park out on the grass if it's a pretty day. And leave the smaller parking places for smaller cars. But see, we don't have smaller cars where we come from in Texas. They're just all bigger cars. But if you've got let's leave room for the people who show up late, because we love you too, and we want you to have a good parking place. And there's a great row of seats here, fourth row back. When I was about 7 consecutive Halloweens, I dressed up as a ninja. The reason I dressed up as a ninja on Halloween is my parents wouldn't let me dress up as a ninja every other day of the year. It was just the one day I got to be who I truly was. A ninja. And every afternoon I would spend my time in the backyard fighting off invisible ninjas, ridding our backyard of evil with moves that I invented, like the ninja kick and the ninja punch. And I had found a stick gun that I used in the back, a gun that looked like a stick, that you don't find that very often. Now I didn't know that at that time, I didn't know that ninjas didn't use guns. They weren't allowed to, but I didn't know that because my parents wouldn't let me go to any of the local chapter ninja meetings. They denied me the ability to fulfill my destiny. It was ninja or preacher, really, were the two options. And one of the things I remember is as I was fighting off these evil, invisible ninjas, saving my brother and sister from such chaos as having to endure evil, invisible ninjas, my older sister and my younger brother, were very close. My sister's about 22 months older than I am. My brother's 14 months younger than I am. They would spy on their middle child brother and laugh at him. Don't feel sympathy for me. I'm working through it. And Jocelyn still tells the story. Those of you who don't know, Jocelyn's my sister's name. She would tell the story where they would be looking at me, kicking and punching and kicking and whatnot, and they would be laughing at how silly I looked, and I'd spot them. They'd see me, and I'd point at them, chase them. That's how our afternoons went. Now, I tell you all that to let you know that to this day, when I'm in public, by myself, if I'm with my family, this really doesn't happen. When I'm in public, by myself, and I hear people giggling, I have to convince myself that they're not laughing at me. And I have to tell myself to stop fighting ninjas. The second part's not true. But the first part, when I really get something in my head, I think, I hear people laughing, I think, they're laughing at me. And maybe some of you have had similar experiences that have led you to have the same feeling. You think, well, what did I do? You didn't do anything. They're laughing at something that happened on TV or something their friend told them. But for some reason, I've got it in my head that when people giggle and I'm by myself, they're giggling at me. See, you are who you are, where you sit right now, because of your story up until this point. There are big moments in your life, or little moments in your life, that have shaped you and made you who you are, where you sit. And that shaping is sometimes it's sometimes good. I mean, there's good moments in your life, like you get married, or your 16th birthday, or the day you have a child. And those good moments are cataloged. We put them in, we take pictures of them. We have pictures of the good moments. The moments that make us feel good about ourselves. I have a beautiful woman who decided to marry me. Great. I have beautiful children who still, don't have a job, but they're still good, and they're great kids. And I have all of these moments that changed my life, and I have them documented. And you have them documented too. You have leather-bound folders of the day you got married, or the day your children were born. You have pictures and videotapes where you talked way too much behind the camera. You have all these things laid out in your life, and you say, those are the moments, those are the good moments that have shaped me. They've made me who I am. Bad moments we don't document. The rough and difficult moments, we don't have 4x6 memories in leather-bound books. They've just shaped us in some way. And maybe you feel, while in public and you hear someone laughing, you think they're laughing at you, and you've never known why for your whole life. There's a reason why. Maybe you have an anger problem, and whenever you get angry, or any real emotion comes, any negative emotion comes, whether it's disappointment, or maybe you're scared, or maybe you're sad, it all manifests itself as anger, and your family suffers because of that. You have no idea why you're like that, but you are like that. See, we are who we are because there's these moments that have shaped us into just who you are, where you sit, you're something. And because of that, you kind of feel broken, don't you? You feel stuck in that brokenness. You feel as though, well, just never gonna get that. Now, you don't feel like that all the time. Some of the time, it kind of haunts you. That's me. Where you, while forgetting the good moments, let the negative moments make you feel unclean, make you feel unholy, unacceptable to God. Those moments can eat you up. Now here's the important part. You are unclean. You are broken. You're stuck. It's not a figment of your imagination. It feels as though you just can't get out of it. And that's real too. You can't get out of it. There's a story in Mark chapter 1. A man with an awful skin disease. Most of your Bibles is going to say leprosy. We don't 99% sure in that day what we understand as leprosy didn't exist. Leprosy didn't happen. The Greek word is just lepra. So you can see where we thought that it was leprosy. It's just a really bad skin disease. An awful skin disease. A man with an awful skin disease came to Jesus. He fell to his knees and begged Jesus. Now, in that day, if your story, all the positive moments aside, your children, you were married, your children were born, all the positive moments aside, if it turned out that you had leprosy or had a skin disease that you couldn't get rid of, your whole life was changed. See, this guy woke up one day and noticed his body and thought, I better go to the priest and get this checked out. Probably a day that began with him thinking that he shouldn't hug his children or his wife, ended with him knowing that he'll never get to do that again. He'll never get to touch his kids. He'll never get to hug his spouse. He'll never get to experience that closeness with them again. His life has been changed, and he's stuck there, and he's unclean. He's exactly what he's going to be for the rest of his life. And he actually has to walk around and say, unclean, unclean. He has to proclaim it to people. He has to say, this is who I am. Who I am is not based on what I love or who I love and who I follow. It's based on my brokenness. It's based on an awful thing that has happened to me. And that awful thing has become my identity. And now that's who I am. That's how I live. Alone, broken, unclean, and stuck. So, he fell on his knees, ran up to Jesus, fell on his knees, and begged. Now, pay attention. Notice this man's story here, at this point, in verse 40, intersects with the story of Jesus. It crosses paths with the story of Jesus. But his story goes all the way back to the story of brokenness and pain. It's a story of having to leave his family. And all of a sudden, his story crossed paths with Jesus. And his story crossed the path of Jesus' story because he decided it was time to run to him, fall on his knees, and beg. Jesus is somebody you decide to follow. He's not somebody that comes into your house and just rescues you when you're not hoping for it. If you want your story to intersect with the story of Jesus, it is time to get up from your mess and run to him and beg him. if you're willing, you can make me clean. Now, the rest of the world at this point would have said, if you're willing, Jesus, because he'd heard about some of the great healings that Jesus had already done. Jesus had healed several people already in Mark 1. And he's heard about all these healings, and he comes to Jesus, and he says, if you're willing, the rest of the world would have said, if you're willing, you can make me better. You can make me well. You can heal me. But this man, a Jewish man, says, if you're willing, you can make me clean. Because his particular illness wasn't just keeping him from interacting with his family, it was keeping him from worshiping God. He couldn't do any of the things that his people did to worship God because he was unclean. And I bet you know that exact feeling. That argument you had with your spouse on the way to church keeps you from worshiping like you typically would. That sin that haunts your memory and your days keeps you from praying. The avenue of prayer is wide open. God says, talk to me anytime you want to, and we just don't because we're guilty. We don't because we feel unclean. This man's wish was not just to be better, but to let his healing affect his worship. See, if your identity is wrapped up in your brokenness, you're going to struggle to worship. If your identity, who you are, is wrapped up, is determined by your sins, determined by your past that haunts you, you're going to have a hard time worshiping. This man knew that Jesus can make him clean and allow him to worship. Filled with compassion. The Greek here actually says it's kind of like Jesus was a bit angry. Scholars have a hard time working out what exactly he means. They're pretty split on it. The best assumption is that Jesus was just angry at the brokenness of what's in front of him, the brokenness of the world. So translated, filled with compassion. I'm not offering an answer. I'm just saying, I'm telling you, there's unknowns about this particular passage. But he's upset. He doesn't like what he sees. He's filled with compassion. All are good translations. Jesus, filled with compassion, reached out his hand and touched the man. There's a lot has been written and preached on about the fact that Jesus touched this guy before he healed him. We'll probably get to that at some point in another sermon, but we just don't have time for it today. So just notice, Jesus touched the unclean before he healed him. And notice what he says. I am willing. Be clean. See, a lot of times we believe that God is capable. We believe He is able. But we forget that He is willing. We believe that God has all power, that Jesus has all power over sin and death and brokenness and selfishness. God has all power over all of those things. And we know that He can change things. But our lack of faith is not that we don't believe He can. It's that we don't believe He will. And when your identity is wrapped up in your brokenness, you'll always think, well, He's able, but He might not be willing. This man falls before Jesus and says, if you are willing. It's a conditional statement. It's saying, I'm not sure if you're willing or not. I'm not sure if you're... I know you're able. If you're willing, you can. You can make me clean. I'm just that good of a preacher. If you're I know you're able, Jesus. I know it's possible. But our lack of faith, we actually distrust trust his willingness. He says to this man, puts his hand on this man, and he says, I am willing. Be clean. A very Jewish way of saying, you can worship all you want now. Your life now is not based upon your uncleanliness. It's based on your cleansing. I am willing to be clean. If your story has hurt you, your story, wherever you sit right now as a broken person, I'm just not what I wanted to be, what I hoped I would be. I had dreams and aspirations, but none of them have been fulfilled. My marriage isn't what I hoped. My finances, I'm impulsive and unwise, and it's led me to a very bad spot. I've damaged relationships that I think I will never get back. My identity, I'm broken. I'm unclean. To be honest, I have a hard time worshiping because of it. I have a hard time worshiping on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday and Saturday like I do sometimes on Sunday. Because my identity is wrapped up in an unclean, bruised mess. You feel like the world can see your uncleanliness on your skin. They can see your story on your skin. Is today going to be the day that your story intersects with the story of Jesus? Is today going to be the day that you decide to run and beg Him to make you clean? Is today going to be the day that you feel the touch of Jesus and you understand, first time maybe in your whole life, that not only is He able, but He is willing to make you clean? Jesus' presence, just His presence, the fact that He came to earth, tells us that He is willing. The fact that He showed up, He didn't have to show up. He didn't have to come. But He loved His creation. God loved His creation more than He loved the throne from which He created them. And so He showed up. Just His presence. Just the fact that His story can intersect with mine tells me that He is willing. He is very willing. And what He wills to do is make you clean. To help you worship. To help you follow Him. When we talk about baptism, I think sometimes we do it a disservice. Say, well, it washes away the sins. Yeah, it does. It does. But it does more than that. It does way more than that. Well, it helps you go to heaven. Yeah, it does. But it does way more than that. What we believe happens when you decide to give your life to Jesus, when you decide to let your life intersect with the life of Jesus. And now you no longer live, but Christ lives in you. What we believe happens is that you join with Him so tightly that you join into His death. You join into His burial. You join into His resurrection. And you come out uniquely connected to the most clean person who ever lived. So yeah, your sins are forgiven, but it's not just that your sins are washed away. Your story has now not just intersected, but intertwined with the story of Jesus. You are no longer identified as broken. You are no longer identified as unclean, but you are identified as a worshiper who can lift their clean hands high and approach the throne of God knowing full well that I am okay in His sight. I am beautiful in His sight. Now I am no longer identified by my brokenness. I am no longer identified by my uncleanliness. I am identified. My identity is found in Jesus. Read Romans 6 sometime and see how many times it talks about when you are baptized, you are with Jesus, in Him, in the same ways, and you are intersecting your story with the story of Jesus. It is not something we take lightly. It is not something we jump to do. But it is if you are ready, if you are willing, if you are able, it is time to let your story intersect with the story of Jesus and feel the cleanness, feel the sanctification. That's such a church word. Feel the holiness that comes from it. And know that you are now a new creation who finds their identity in Jesus. You don't find your identity in your own failures, in your own brokenness, in your own uncleanness, but you find your identity in the one who made you clean. So you too, like the man with the skin disease, will go on your way celebrating, telling everyone you can about this man that made you clean. He is willing. And He is very capable. But are you? We know you're capable. It's not a hard thing to do. Are you willing to let your story, the story of brokenness and cleanness, intertwine and intersect with the story of Jesus? Today might just be your day. Today might just be your day. But you got to be willing. We at this church trust that the people around you will point you to Jesus. That if you want to let your life intersect with the life of Jesus, if you want your story to intersect with His, if you want your past to be clean, we'd say come forward. You can go backward, you can go sideways. But grab someone. Grab someone and say, I want my life to intersect with Jesus. They'll know where to be. They might bring you down the front. They might take you out back. They'll know what to do.